Okay, I'd like to call to order the April 4th, 2024 meeting of the Historic District Commission for the City of Saugatuck. And we will start with our first item, which is roll call. Sarah, could you help us with that?
Sure. Baker,
Here.
Patterson,
Here.
Garza,
Here.
Donahue, Gardner, Godfrey. Here. And Leo.
So we have a quorum. Thank you. Are there any agenda changes, additions, or deletions?
None from staff, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes of the regular meeting held on March 7th, 2024? And if so, would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on March 7th.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yep.
Yes. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Are there any public comments on the agenda items tonight? Okay. Thank you. Is there any unfinished business?
And we'll,
Sorry.
just to double check, Mr. Chair, sometimes it may be good to just check and see if there's anybody online that they
Oh, yeah.
want to raise their hand.
And
or-
somebody's on mute, so just in case, yeah.
All right.
Okay. No unfinished business. Seeing as such, we'll move right to new business. First is 132 Mason Street, which is an outdoor dining and patio parking or patio space. Come on up. Welcome.
So my name is Brian Barnhill. That's my wife Lisa in the back row there. And we are hoping for approval for our outdoor seating area. We just acquired Charlie's around the corner ice cream shop a month or so ago. And it'll be the same as it was last year. There's a white fence, some tables out there, planters, and also for our patio area. And Ryan mentioned something about some pictures that didn't come through too good, so I've got some extra pictures of the fence and the tables if you'd like to see them, but it's pretty much gonna be the same as it was last year.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Appreciate you guys coming tonight. The way these meetings work is you present what you just did and anything else that's not in the packet. We'll go around the table and discuss, and then we'll send it through for a vote.
Awesome,
So,
great, thank
um,
you.
thank you. I'll start on this end. Do you have any questions or clarifying comments?
Nope, I don't.
Laura,
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
No questions.
John? And I don't either. It looks similar to what it was last year, and it's not structural the way we've talked about that we look at in terms of our historic district guidelines. Everything is temporary. So seeing as that's the case, would anyone like to make a motion?
I will. I move to approve the outdoor dining areas in accordance with the plans, materials, and details submitted with the application for 132 Mason Street. Approval. That's it. No conditions.
Great. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Okay, thanks so much for coming in. Quick meeting for you guys.
Congratulations.
The second application is 128 Hoffman, which is also outdoor dining, and this is on page 19 of your packet. Hello,
How are you guys?
Hi.
good, same setup.
Yep, same stuff. I believe you have everything. It's similar to what I've done the last 5 years. Tom Arnold, Wally's Barn Grill. So
Okay,
any questions, glad to answer.
thank you. We'll start on this end this time. John, do you have any?
I don't have any questions.
Laura?
I don't have any question other than how long is this all up until? I didn't see any dates. It goes up when, and do you take it down at some point or it stays up?
Well, I believe what the city is structured is we can do April through October 31st.
Okay,
And then those are annual fees you have to do that with. So I'd like to have that option open for the whole time. I mean, even if we, obviously, right now with this turtleneck and everything, it's a good thing I didn't pay for April. let's say.
Right.
But optional to leave it open through October, yeah, I would love that, because that's what they allow us to do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well,
Keith?
No questions.
And I guess I would say the same thing as I did on the last application. According to our guidelines, there's nothing permanent here. There's nothing that conflicts with the architecture. And then I think this is super successful in that I appreciate the quality of what you're proposing, and how
you
that.
know what, it can
presents.
get even better now that we know it's a little more permanent, but it's.
That you're
the
doing it
year-to-year
again, yeah,
thing.
versus
It's
1
hard to
year.
throw out, X amount of dollars for that. but
Correct, correct. So thank you for putting the effort into that.
Absolutely.
We appreciate the investment too.
Yes.
It really looks good.
Does.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Yep, I move to approve the outdoor dining areas in accordance with the plans, materials, and details submitted with the application for 128 Hoffman Street.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Thank you for coming in.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Have a great night.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
All right, our third item is 246 Butler, a front door replacement, and that is on page 46. Hello, how are you?
Good. I'm Lucian Champagne. I'm the project manager at the property there. If any of you have seen the door, I think we're probably in agreement that it needs replacement. It's not safe. It's not ADA compliant. It's not secure. So I submitted some options, reflecting materials and doors that have been used in the surrounding businesses. And we would also like to do the same. It is different than what's there, but it's not different than what the neighborhood is using at the present time.
Okay, thank you. Laura, we'll start with you this time. Any clarifying questions or comments?
No, I do not. Thank you.
John?
I did notice that all of the separate businesses with this combed brick that are adjacent to Jim Branda's studio have the darker metal doors. And even the one past Glick's on the other side has the same combed brick with a dark metal door. So I think that just adds continuity and substance to this space. Yeah. So
Thank you.
no questions other than just that comment that I agree with it. The direction.
Thank you. Keith?
No questions.
This picture, this photo says a lot.
Mhm.
And so I want to, refer back to our guidelines for a minute as a contributing resource. I think the doors are probably repairable. However, before this owner, like it says in our packet, an awning was removed. And I don't know that that awning was original to the property either, but it covered a cacophony of sins. And without that awning, and I can't speak to, nor does it matter, what happened to that or when it happened prior to you owning the building. I think that changes probably how I view a contributing resource of the if those doors are even original. So that whole little piece, kind of like John, what you said, almost reads as one unit. And so it's probably more in keeping of celebrating that historic contributing property to make it feel, have the same voice as the contributing properties around it.
Can I just add that all of the others have transoms or higher windows, but all of the others are higher buildings. You can see this one steps down. And it looks like this one got all of the stuff, the meter and everything for that whole building, because the rest of it doesn't have any of that. It's perfectly clean. So I'm hoping there's a solution for that too. The awning did look nice with this lower door. And you didn't say that you're proposing to cut the brick and go up higher, right?
No.
Okay.
My guess would be this was infill based on the building to the right, the height of the parapet.
Yep.
And the fact that the brick doesn't match exactly, I bet it was
There's a seam.
an alley or something.
I bet it
or-
was an alley.
But who knows? We don't have that history on this building to know when that infill may or may not have occurred. Yeah,
One more question. Maybe I missed it. Same exact color as the Book Nook? The same? Yes. Okay.
retail structure. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
Sure, I will. I move to approve the new front entry replacement doors at 246 Sputler Street in accordance with the plans and details submitted with the application materials.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Um, I'm just looking, sorry, my one discussion point on my discussion ask is, our consultant made a comment about salvaging the doors. Are they salvageable?
Sir, can you,
Oh, sorry, yeah.
can you come up to the microphone? I'm
Yeah, sorry,
yeah.
pop back up if you don't mind. It's my fault.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry.
Yes, so anything can be fixed or restored, but as you can see, the divides have been broken in one spot. None of the glass is tempered, which is a safety issue. And in fact, we had to cover, of course, part of that because it got broken. And they're not ADA compliant. Each panel is about 30 inches. And yes, they can all be opened, but in reality, the only one that was used was the one on the right.
So the only thing I'll say in the discussion portion of this, since there's a motion on the floor, is having walked by there, the building is contributing, but I'm not convinced these doors are original material. They don't have the quality that would go back to the era of the building. So for those reasons, and I'm only addressing it because our consultant addressed it in our packet, which I think was really smart. I don't feel the need to salvage them for those reasons, which is also part of this approval. So just make that comment on the record. All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yeah.
Yes, opposed? Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Good luck with your project. Okay, next on page 58, we have 650 Water Street. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us. My name's Alec Payleitner. Again, thank you for having us back, taking the time as we collectively solve our problems here with our property. When last we spoke, we talked 2 months ago, I think, we talked of a few things. But the one outstanding item now remains our the kitchen equipment, the vent for the new kitchen hoods. Also, when last we spoke, we had sort of kind of settled on ground equipment, which has proven problematic for a few different reasons. One is the zoning part of it, that we would have to change the zoning here. And second, the fencing required there, because of where it is in the district, would have to be open fencing. So it'd be like, I forget, 6-to-1, I think is what the measurements would be. So there's a little bit of an eyesore element too. And so this is the solution that we came up with the help of our general contractor and our equipment guys, who are very outside the box talented people that, we've put quite a bit of thought into what this might look like. We'll call it a hood chimney, if you will. Obviously, it's not a chimney, but that's kind of the shape and feel of it. So if you look at that top photo, you'll see where that proposed chimney is where it needs to be for hood purposes. So we'd be moving the electric box over to the left. You can see it's outlined in red in the top right there. It's also moved in the rendering on the bottom. That gives you kind of that side view. So that front facing view is important because you'll see kind of the width of it goes between the windows there, and it carries out all the exhaust up and over the building, which is also an added kind of environmental aspect. That's a bonus rather than having the ground equipment here, is that all of it would be carried up and out over the building. And the bottom, you'll see that it only comes out 2 feet from the building, lives about 4 feet from the ground. It's about 4 feet wide. We did last week get our zoning approval to approve this because that thing goes right up into the property line. So even that just that 2 feet extends into over our property lines. We did have to get zoning approval for that, which thankfully they helped us out with. But as we stand before you, addressing your concerns before you pose them to me, but that chimney, as you can see in the top right picture, would match the facade exactly. So it would just simply be, same wood, same styling, same painting. And then obviously the equipment now lives on the rooftop, which would be in the very northwest corner of the building. And you cannot see that from the front view for what it's worth. Obviously be able to see it from the side, and any equipment that's on the top of the building, per city rules, has to be fenced in as well. So we did propose, if you look at, there's a picture in here of the front of the building. It's probably the other direction.
Yep.
So if you see on the front there, the fencing, just a simple picket fencing that's right out front there. That's equipment coverage as well. So just because that's what's there, we're happy to match that exact fencing on the side. But that hides equipment as well, and so that would be front facing. But this also gives you a good viewpoint that you would not be able to see that back equipment from this vantage point. So it wouldn't get in the view there, but obviously you would be able to see it if you're facing south. So for safety reasons and for aesthetic reasons, we would need to put that fencing out there. And I think that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions or talk through this thought process with you here.
Hey, Alec, I don't know if I understood. So on this photo, is that second story picket fence-ish thing, is that already there?
Yes.
And that's hiding something.
This is no renderings here.
Got it.
That's
Okay.
hiding current equipment. So that's what my proposal would be for the fencing that has to go in with our new equipment would
On top.
match that for matching purposes.
Up top.
Yeah, up
Yeah.
top, exactly.
Keith, we'll start your side this time.
And then the fencing gets painted on the barrier for the rooftop one?
On the roof,
Yeah.
it certainly can.
Oh.
My inclination was to match what currently exists there. Not that that's a super sexy piece of fencing, but I'm happy to match that as is. I'm also happy to paint it, if that makes sense.
It's just usually just treated wood, so it would
Yes.
just gray out over time.
Exactly.
It's the only question I had.
Thank you.
Laura?
It was helpful to have the fencing clarified as well. I was, good to know that will be duplicated. It looks like the mechanicals are nicely aligned and supportive, I think, of the request. So I have no questions, going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I have no problem with the mechanicals. That fence, I'm wondering if that could be, I get it, trying to be consistent, but like you said, that's not that attractive to start with. So I'm wondering if, because the chimney structure is on the side, if that rooftop one could match the same, like almost like a chimney that comes through a roof that is the same as the siding material. Is that a possibility?
I would say certainly, but the same. So,
Paint it the same material?
yeah, it would just be.
I'm looking at this side picture. That's what we're talking about right there, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
So if it looked like the out ones and out, they both look like chimney structures. One's coming through the roof. If you just surround that with a skirt of this same material, I would be much happier than trying to do anything with this. And if you have any influence on this and it, for budget reasons or whatever, a simple solution could be to just cut that off straight and paint it. And
Yeah.
instead of having the ups and
Sure.
downs, and I think it would disappear then.
Yeah, I'm 100% on your side here. I was going for consistency of what exists already for this application purposes, but yes, if that is the route you want to take, I think could not agree more that that is significantly better from a aesthetic perspective. So
Anything else?
I don't have anything else.
I guess to piggyback on that, I appreciate what you're trying to do with consistency. There's nothing consistent about this building. So I feel like job one here is to quiet everything down. So I think exactly what John said, I would agree with, like not making it a fence around the top, but just making it a painted out solid skirting thing that almost looks like a chimney. No one's going to know the difference. The other thing is, since you're doing this work on the side, anything you can paint out
sure.
solid to be the same color as the structure will mitigate the activity on the side of that building.
Yeah, I'll do my due diligence into what, I don't know what's allowed from like
Yeah.
a metering standpoint.
Yeah, I don't think technically you're allowed to paint a meter, but
But we have to, I mean, we have to get color matches and painters out there, so might as well just have
might
them.
as well
Yep.
figure that out.
Absolutely.
And then the last thing I would just say for the other commissioners is just looking at our report. Since we've talked about this application a time or two, I think just noting that this solution is very much in keeping with section 7, subsection B of mechanical systems and outside elements. So this follows that recommendation very clearly. And I think it's a better solution than fencing, especially given where this is in the water view and the importance of the water view to our district. So just want to acknowledge that. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I move to approve the proposed kitchen hood vent exhaust systems, HVAC system, and roof screening in accordance with the plans and details submitted. However, there is a request for keeping that fencing the same height. Because all of those planks are uneven. Wasn't that something you would like to have, John?
Well,
That was an aside. I think what the application is for the screening on the roof. And that we said would be the siding material screening
Okay.
and painted the same.
correct. That's not part of their app.
Roof
Yeah.
and siding color, so
This isn't part of the application.
very good. So, I move, you want me to read it again?
Maybe one more time, just
Okay.
start
I move to
over.
approve the proposed kitchen hood vent exhaust system, HVAC system, and roof screening in accordance with the plans and details submitted with the application materials.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes, opposed? Okay, thanks so much, you guys. Appreciate you working with us.
I need to revisit you with renderings or anything of that nature for the fencing around the equipment up top, or are we at an understanding?
I think you're fine
Mhm.
based on your drawings,
you. We can't
drawings
wait.
submitted. Yep, thank you.
Be there right at the beginning.
Okay, our next application on page 70, thank you, Sarah, is 120 Mary Street. Hello,
Nice to meet all of you in person.
thank you. And
My
who are you?
name is Michael Wachter.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for coming.
I'm representing the ownership of the Wickwood Inn at 610 Butler Street and Wachter, Waechter. I do have some hard copies of the images that were submitted, just a larger format. I don't know if you guys want to.
I think Sarah will probably put those up on screen. So I think we'll be okay.
They'll be legible.
Yeah, thank you. Want to give us just a brief overview of anything that maybe we don't see in our packet and
No, so the building at 120 Mary Street is it's an older frame structure that's been wrapped around with a masonry one-story bungalow, probably sometime in the late 40s or early 50s. The existing structure that was there, wood frame with the lap siding, is probably from the late 19th century. I don't know the exact date, but it predates most of the things around it. The owners of the Wickwood purchased the property to work in conjunction with the Wickwood Inn and to allow them to combine the amenities of the properties to prospective travelers there. Part of the program there includes a pool and a sauna, turning the existing accessory structure into a pool house and modifying the interior of the building to have 3 suites. The renderings that we show on the top left corner, you see the context photo that's the existing building. And you can see the white lap siding at the top portion, which was what we feel is the original building. And below it, you can see the blonde brick that wraps around the outside of the building. Below that, we have the 2 renderings that show the building with a new facade, helping to tie in the 2 buildings and the 2 properties together. In the lower right, you can see another context photo with the Wickwood on the right and 120 Mary Street on the left. Most of the windows and such in the 120 Mary Street will remain. There are a few places where we're modifying the interior. We have to either remove or replace some fenestration. That's it.
Anything else?
No. I think that's it.
Um,
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions.
I'll start us off on this one. I want to make sure, I want to make sure you've seen and have access to our guidelines that are on our website.
I have,
Okay,
yes,
so this is a contributing structure.
right.
Um,
It doesn't say what era of the structure is contributing. It doesn't, normally when we do a historic renovation project, and I've done many historic renovations and had projects added to the historic register, right? When you do that, they are assigned a time, the part of the era that you're trying to recreate or preserve. We assumed in this one, it's the original structure, which is only visible on the second floor.
so the fact that it has been, that we can date it back to 1864, and even that the brick may not be original, but is potentially from the 40s or 50s, still contributes to its
To what you'd like to see.
correct, to
Okay.
its status of just of authenticity and what it is. And then I think our other sections of our guidelines that talk about originality of windows, accessory structures, working shutters, not vinyl siding, but wood siding.
Mhm.
I think there's a whole lot that we would likely be challenged with. I don't want to speak for every commissioner, but there's a whole lot we would be challenged with on this.
Well, I'm open.
Yeah.
So,
I
I mean, this is why we're here, we have to present it and get some
Yeah,
feedback. So,
mean, I think our comments, they'll center around the table, but completely supportive as one commissioner of what the owners are trying to do in terms of
Mhm.
incorporating it into the property.
yes.
And I can see how that could be really successful, but it would have to not lose its sense of place in that process for me.
And
so-
what do you describe as its sense of place?
Its originality, the contributing nature of all the materiality, the windows, its setting, the doors on the accessory structure, which are gorgeous. That sense of home and outbuilding. that's made possible because of the relationship between materiality. Those are just starters for me. But I also think like trying to help you achieve your goals. You didn't present this as a conceptual conversation, but I'd very much love to work with, I think the commission would love to work with you and figure out how to achieve your goals in a conceptual way. One commissioner's point of view, and then I'll send it around, is I think this is not supportive of our guidelines. So I'll maybe start this end.
Yeah, and I can just add to that. When I go through this, I usually start with the basics, the Secretary of Interior standards of rehabilitation upon which all of our guidelines and recommendations are based on. I couldn't get past the first 3 or 4 before I said, this isn't ready for a detailed analysis that you're showing. And I completely agree with Tim, is we want this to be a success. And we want you to be able to have a structure that reflects what we are as a community and what it has been. Even though this building looks odd, it is a historic building and you can see how it's changed over time. I know I'm preaching a little bit, but the one thing about significant alterations that stood out to me is that goes along with that. It's number 4, maintain significant alterations. This is from the standards of rehabilitation. It says most properties change over time. Those changes have acquired historic significance in their own right and shall be retained and preserved. And so that we may be different in other historic districts that you've worked with, but we tend to look at the entire building and say, does it tell us a story? Because it is contributing, and we don't have an appetite for making it something it is not. And the concerns I have is this going to stay as a household, or is it going to be absorbed into another facility and not have any remaining features that are, that define that? And you look at this building and it defines itself by looking at it. And the average person walking by would say, well, this thing looks like, but if you take a critical eye, which you probably have, and you say, oh, there's the original one. It was a colonial design. You can see the balanced windows, the one that's still left with the different proportions on the side. I looked in the front window, and one of the windows that is part of the entranceway is still that window. And they must have made, a living room in the front. So I'm with Tim in that I don't think it's time for us to get into the details of this. And I could go on about the outbuilding and what is being proposed, but all of the things that are being proposed.
The outbuildings included.
The
in-
one outbuilding that
All
you're
right.
proposing to remove the garage doors, or
Yeah,
to me, it's,
by full garage.
it's not a carriage house. It looks like it was probably.
Yeah,
for a
it's
car,
definitely
built in the 30s maybe.
Mhm.
But we do want to work with you, and we do want this to be a success because its street view is gorgeous. You can see it from the river. You can see it from Butler Street. You can see it up front. And if you get rid of all the yews and the other stuff that's overgrown, it's gorgeous. But it's an
I agree.
odd building.
It is an odd building.
And the yellow brick, the scratch brick that they have there is unique. And those are things that we are here to preserve.
one bolt-on I would add, Keith, to your comment, sorry to jump in,
No,
is
good discussion.
so this house was the listing agent of this house was owned by her husband, who I think grew up there, her husband's mother. And so the listing agent's husband grew up there. This house really hadn't changed since the 50s. And so I think there's an importance in that in terms of its place on the street. And the fact that it's so original and so well maintained from that era, that just to give you some context to, I think probably where we're coming from when we say sense of place. So I'll shut up.
Yep.
Move to you, Laura. Were you done? I didn't mean to step on you.
No, I'm good. I've said enough. Too much, maybe.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous house. It's just, it's a placeholder, and it's an opportunity clearly to match it and bring it into a different life, which is obviously what you're attempting to do. But obviously there are concerns, which I do share, and I think it needs more discussion and more work. And we'd be very happy to see this evolution, with that core intact somehow, if that's possible.
Did you review the interior plans? Not
We
at
don't-
all.
we don't do
Okay.
interiors.
Interiors.
All right.
No, the only times we usually look at interiors in conjunction with exterior is when,
Windows or doors.
well, or when there may be an ADA
Oh, right. Okay.
issue where a
Yeah.
door might need to be widened
Okay.
or improved, actually, just like the one we looked at tonight. Yeah, and in other cases I can think of one case in the last year where we had a contributing structure where they wanted to change the use case of the room, but they didn't change the window. They just actually blacked out the window so that it didn't change from the street, and its view from the street and elevation didn't change, but its use on the interior did. So there's all kinds of things. I think that's where we look at the balance between what you want to do and what it needs to say to the street. I think there's also, our commission has, like most commissions, thinks slightly differently on the rear elevation of things that are added or changed than it does for the front elevation.
What is that? Can you clarify?
I think it all depends on like what you ask for and what you want to do. But if you were to add an addition onto the back of this,
Right.
for instance, there's a couple instances in our community where it's been really successful adding an addition that doesn't try to replicate. It differentiates, and you can clearly see that if I slice that off and take it off 30 years from
The
now,
original.
the
Yeah.
original's still there and you can tell new from old.
Okay.
That kind of a thing, I think, is usually really successful.
Isn't part of what you're saying too, that we really focus on the streetscape, what we see from the street?
Yes, but it's protecting all the original fabric. I just think there's a little more, there tends to be more latitude in many cases on the rear. It gets more complicated if it's on a corner. This isn't. But I'm speaking in a total general comment.
Do you ever see this going back to being residential, like a single family?
I think that's kind of part of what your comment is.
I said, do you ever see this going back to becoming a single family? It was zoned in C4, which was the commercial, and we put it in the transitional,
Okay.
which puts it in a different.
So
light.
from a zoning standpoint, you have the ability to turn it into a commercial place, right?
Well, with the
Without our-
R4, it's
without our
different.
overview.
So the zoning that they were in previously actually had more options, more
Yeah.
commercial options. In either case, they can have the single family dwelling.
Right. I'm just curious if the commission here ever envisages this thing going back to becoming a single family.
I don't feel like that's our purview.
Yeah.
I think
It was opinion.
Yeah.
I know.
I feel like that would be overstepping for us. We always protect it to be.
Yeah.
The 10th item on the last one on that rehabilitation list is make alterations reversible.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's really simple comment, in
Mhm.
plain English. This is, what's being done here is not reversible.
But that doesn't speak to the use. You're
Right.
saying like this, that part of the guideline
Yeah.
speaks to if you're
Well,
changing
yeah, I'm
doors. and
familiar with the
windows.
guidelines, but the guidelines are also meant, as I said at the beginning of this, to evoke a specific era, a specific time. You know, the famous example of that is the Rookery Building in Chicago that was built by one architect, renovated by another, and they're both protected. So everyone says, which one of these do we protect and bring forward?
Yeah. Well,
In this case, there's,
Yeah, but
You-
there's
you've got-
there's 4 different kinds: preservation, restoration, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. We've been talking about restoration. I think you're talking about rehabilitation.
yeah,
I don't
Adaptive
think
reuse.
we've been talking about rehabilitating, which would mean picking an era, taking off everything that we don't think is appropriate and building it to reflect what it originally looked like. We've never had that conversation. We've just said it's a contributing structure. And if it was 1979 and we decided 50 years ago that was, It
That was
good.
the thing that did it. I,
From that point back,
Right.
we can freeze it.
I think you would have a really good position if this was, if the whole thing had, if it was a contributing structure where the footprint and the basic, all the openings were original, but,
but nobody knows what that is.
well, the windows had been changed,
Yeah, I mean,
and
they're.
the siding and the brick had been changed, and
Not even. a palm
The
system.
Sanborn maps going back to 1910 show the original colonial
Mhm.
structure with its, simple design and the roof that goes off the back before it goes to that sunroom off the back.
Porch or something.
So
right?
as far back as 1910, the basic structure, which you can still see,
you can see it.
is there.
Okay.
So the cool story about this place is if you're sitting in the backyard and having a cocktail at the hotel, you can read about this incredible structure that survived since 1864 because somebody took care of it, and it's been well taken care of. That's my view.
Mhm.
So,
John,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, this is really good discussion and I'm agreeing with everything I'm hearing. To unwind this, let's just say it's the 1940s.
Mhm.
You know, that's what it feels like to me, but I'm just speculating. To unwind it, do we sterilize it? Like, at what point, how far back do you go? Like, if you go back as far as you said,
yeah,
boy, that would be
Yeah.
amazing.
yep.
But if you start to take this apart piece by piece, I think we start to sterilize it and the character is lost. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder on this one, and charm. There, you could pull a lot of different people and people would say it's ugly and should be torn down, or you could pull people and they'd say it's completely charming and fits the character of the town. So we're here to protect that fabric.
Right.
And there's layers on here, and that's where it gets complicated. The brick included, because the brick's been there a long time.
Yeah.
The only time, I guess, to your point, that most historic districts would ever unwind something is if it's been wound up in a casserole sort of way, fragmented year over year, decade over decade. This likely had one major inflection point in the 40s or 50s, and we know that based on who lived there, that it didn't change that entire time. So that in itself is contributing. I don't think there's any more purity that you can find in this other than in and of itself, it meets our standard for historic in the time that it was done.
Even 1970, what, 6 would. So the fact that it's 50s or 40s, we're sure that this is contributing and worthy of protecting. But I get it. I get what you're trying to do, and we do want to help you. I'm concerned about the materiality, vinyl and all that, but I don't even think we
Oh,
want to go there now.
I didn't want the vinyl at all. The only reason
Yeah.
it got submitted is because that's what the Wickwood has on it, and we were trying to have some continuity there.
Yeah.
Trust me, I wouldn't knowingly pick that. I had
Yeah.
to go figure out what that was.
I think the most productive discussion, at least one item, is what are the defining features of this place? If we could do that for you, then you would have a clearer view of what we're gonna be willing to call balls and strikes on.
Absolutely.
what
Some
we are.
insight on what you want to
Yeah.
see there would
And
be
I
very
think
helpful.
that's probably, if you go away today, I
Mm.
don't need to talk about it. How you're gonna take the brick off and how you're gonna deal with that and how you're gonna deal with the siding, blah, 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 blah. But what are the defining features of this place based on the historic guidelines?
Mhm.
And, I think that would be a good place to start.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I feel like, what do we owe the applicant at this time?
Yeah.
Since this is sort of a loaded request.
Yeah, and we can't just say anything right now. We have to really give it some
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, we have
I
to
don't
react to
think we
what
know
you'd
how
like to do.
The detail stuff. I think we're good at that, but we never had a discussion. When I saw this come up, I thought, oh, this will be a great discussion. Because we haven't had a discussion on a structure like this that wants a pretty substantial change,
Yeah.
for another purpose. I mean, it's
Yeah.
hitting all of those things.
Yeah,
that
we
you
a lot
do.
of new things here.
Yeah, it's hitting all those things that we really don't spend a lot of time talking about. And, frankly, I'm inexperienced with. So.
It's a great opportunity all the way around.
Yeah, we absolutely want to work with you. I mean, no, the owners want to work with city. We want to make this thing work. So everyone's interested in
Yeah.
doing.
And they've been great to work with.
Yes.
Sure, there are
Yeah,
other renovations
I've
too,
been
so.
working with them for a
That's
very long
fair-
time.
That's a fair return to you. Would you agree that we come back to you? with-
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, you had a week to look at this. Maybe 2 weeks. I don't know, but it was
Want to hear
not,
from
not
your
long.
Point of view.
Few
though.
days, yeah.
Few days, yeah.
They've had a few days.
So say that again, Laura. What are you proposing? That we look at it longer?
That we look at it longer, we
Oh.
take Keith's recommendation
Yeah.
to come back to you with what we understand the defining
Yeah,
characteristics.
what's important to you?
I'm a little challenged with that only because I don't think that's what we do. We react to what you do.
Okay.
And we respond based on our guidelines. I would never want to dictate or prescribe what is right or wrong. So I know what you're saying and I appreciate where you're going.
But
Yeah.
for a certificate, the owner bears the burden of proof. I agree. But if it's so far off and he's asking for a bit of direction, I think that's reasonable for us to at least suggest a direction.
It's not,
It's not.
it's not in an assignment sort of way. We don't get assigned that and come back.
Yeah.
What we do is have a conceptual review.
Got it.
So if you just put a conceptual review, we can table this, I think.
What's the
Tape.
difference?
Because you may not have been on the commission, but we've done a couple, actually, I think we did it in the lobby of the Wickwood. For a home, a new construction where the owner came and they actually had 2 rounds of conceptual review where they presented drawings and described what they wanted to do. And we gave them feedback and said, from a scale standpoint, a materiality standpoint, it
Okay.
fits or it doesn't
Okay.
fit with the neighborhood. And you might be challenged with this. We didn't say it was like yes or no.
Mhm.
We said, these are the areas I would focus on to make
That's
this
understood. Yeah,
adhere to
I
our
get it.
guidelines.
Yeah.
So that a conceptual review is a dialogue where we can freely on the record have that and help.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't want to take an assignment and come back and feel like
You
have
owe,
us
you owe us
dictating.
information.
Yeah,
I
I
totally
just-
understand.
Yeah.
That's
So
understood.
maybe I wasn't saying it right. My first question when I saw this was, did you use the standards of rehabilitation as a guideline of one of your guidelines when this was
Mhm.
conceptualized? That would have been my first question. And if the answer was no, then I would have said, well, it's not time to review this stuff in gory detail. That's where I would have went, right? So
But I think
what
it
I'd
makes-
say is, if I sent you off, I'd say, use our guidelines,
That's right.
bounce your designs and your concepts against that, along with everybody else's rules and regs,
Mhm.
but we have a pretty substantial stake in this turning out right. Because that's what our mission
That's
is.
fair.
And then
Yeah.
I would just say, for our purposes, a conceptual review
Yeah.
gives the applicant the ability to have dialogue without a result.
Yeah.
Meaning without a yes or no vote. It gives us the ability to have a wider aperture on the project and have dialogue. And that doesn't mean like you could still do something as a result of that conceptual review, come back to the commission and gosh darn it, I really want to replace those windows or I really want to do that. It doesn't mean just because we had the conceptual review that we're going to agree with it, but you have a better idea
Mhm.
of where there's common ground.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah, but to speed things up, I keep going back to the standards for
Yeah.
rehabilitation. If it's obvious that it hasn't been thought through on the first conceptual review, then that's going to be a long conceptual process.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a nomenclature difference too between a contributing structure and an actual historical structure. So in a contributing structure, it's generally an overall look and feel, generally, versus the actual detailing of every component in there.
It's
So
a-
a little bit of a nomenclature difference.
Yeah, and every district's a little bit different. And in fairness, I mean, I've seen districts that have house files this thick.
Yeah.
That could go back on this structure and see every generation of renovation
Done it.
and some commissions will pick a point and say, this is where we should be. Unfortunately, our district just doesn't have that. The consistency by which we have conversations about contributing and non-contributing is usually the amount of original fabric and original intent that's there. And by the way, we have had conversations where we've said, this is listed as one or the other, and it doesn't seem like it's one or the other. And we've had a vote where we've said, this non-contributing structure do we agree that it's contributing? And we voted on that. And because things change and where something may be contributing and it's no longer, because it was just, in this case, I can't imagine that we would vote that this is non-contributing, but that's never off the table either. I wouldn't bank on that, on what you're hearing here.
I don't think I'd bank on that either.
Yeah, yeah.
It's understood.
And then that conceptual review, if you want to do that, we're also missing a few commissioners tonight. So a full slate of 7, I think would be really helpful for you to get a couple other points of view. Especially there's a couple commissioners not here tonight who have even longer history in the neighborhood and, might have a point of view on that. So
We'd appreciate all the feedback we could get.
thank you.
Been good to have you here and have you understand, some of the early discussion about how this resonates. So we'll go on from there.
Yeah,
Ryan, would
we
you
wanna-
recommend
we
that
wanna
we
help-
table this or that we take a vote?
I think it's probably best that you make a decision on the plans that are before you. I mean, your ordinance requires that you make a, decision within, 60 days on the application that's before you. There is an option to kind of extend that, based on kind of mutual, agreement. I think typically like conceptual review or kind of initial feedback is something that's done pre-application.
Right.
And at that point, it's non-binding. We don't have an official, set of plans before us to review to where the comments that you're making are part of a record on making a determination. So I think you dispose of this application this evening and make a decision. They want to come back with some, for a conceptual, the pre-application discussion before submitting another application, then I think there's a little more latitude that would probably be there.
So I think we would ask for a motion in the affirmative, the way it's written here, correct?
Motion and affirmative, correct, either way. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So do I have a motion the way it's written here?
Well, what I mean in the affirmative would be if based on your discussion, it sounds like you wish to deny this, but it would be a motion to deny where you'd be
Versus
voting in the
approve.
affirmative.
Got it.
correct?
Yeah, okay, I'm with you.
Okay.
I mean, I'll make a motion, I guess I
Yeah,
can.
go
right?
for it.
I'd like to make a motion to deny the improvements and renovations at 120 Mary Street in accordance with the plans and details submitted with the applications and materials, noting that they do not reflect our standard historic district guidelines.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Is there discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Okay, so we have a game plan. Come.
Yeah, we'll go back
Talk
to
to the owners and
Yeah, we'll go back and,
put a conceptual
right.
review conversation on the
Yeah.
calendar.
So help me with the conceptual review, who participates,
All of us.
and is it?
So do we go through
documented?
the same process to submit?
Is it documented and is it public record or how does this work?
It's usually, it has been, it's not an application. It's a request to have a dialogue in a meeting.
Right. It's kind of a pre-application meeting essentially where it's simply, these are some things we're thinking about. We're just looking for some initial feedback. It's not binding on either party, none of the comments that you make. I mean, obviously, until they actually submit an application and what you need to make your decision, then it's just some feedback essentially.
And I don't think it has to be at a normally scheduled meeting either.
Hmm.
I think it'd be great if it is.
Well, if you're gonna have a forum of you, making.
Then
some
it'll be a
then
real
yes,
meeting.
so we
That's a
should-
good point.
yep,
That's
so,
a real meeting.
uh,
Correct. Sorry, that
So
was a
it's
dumb
real
comment.
Meeting with real outcomes and minutes and attendance.
Just no application to approve or deny. It's a conversation.
So the only feedback you get then is the discussion in this forum.
To understand where this district is coming
There's
from, where
no-
the
right,
commissioners are
okay.
coming from, better understand those guidelines like Keith is pointing out that are important to us. And you get a sense of like, ooh, that one's going to be tough.
No, I get a really good sense of it already. I know what you want to
Okay.
do with this.
Okay.
That's not a problem, but with specific feedback, it's easy, just in other jurisdictions, municipalities, whatever, they give you a thing back that says it was denied for these reasons, and sometimes they can be a little more specific than others. That's all.
Okay.
So,
Well, we already made the motion.
Yeah.
Did it. I was gonna say, I mean, I could have put
no, on
every
this
one of
one,
those
this
in
is,
that, but I
I
referenced them.
understood
So,
on
okay.
this one. This is the first go at it, and we'll try again, but in
Okay.
the future, even if it's not for a vote, if it's a little more granular, the conversation that
For sure.
would be appreciated. So we don't do this too many times.
For sure. That's a good point. It is designed to save professional fees and
Yeah,
like
that's-
have one good rich meeting and
Yeah.
hopefully saves you the back and forth and the homeowner the back and forth.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
So
Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
The next item was on the agenda. There's a separate sheet in your packet that's now in the record. This was in our meeting last time. It's our 2024 goals, where we sort of outlined and had dialogue around our purpose, the things that matter, our focus, what our team norms are, what we expect of one another. Russ, as a follow-up, did a great matrix of our goals to sort of make sure we're holding ourselves accountable for how we measure, achieve, and over time and track those. So I think it's great. I included the matrix on each of the goals. So to reiterate, our goals are focused on education and awareness with a couple sub-bullets, focus on training, and focus on internal champions for each of us. And there's some success criteria. I also reorganized them. I took your edits and put our purpose and the stuff, all the other stuff first, and put the goals second, because it made a little more sense to do it that way.
It's great.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys. So we'll start kicking these into gear. Maybe keep them handy in each of our meetings if you just tuck them in your folder and bring them back.
Great. Nice.
Next is administrative approvals and updates. Anything on here you would like to mention, Ryan?
Just to note, Mr. Chair, that the items that say pending are no longer pending. They're both have received approval. Otherwise, happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you. Is there any communication?
I believe all of you received some communication. It was before our meeting packet. Well, it was after your meeting packet went out, so we'll include the communication in your next meeting packet. It's for packet purposes, but that was the only communication that was received from Mr. Gary Rendler.
Okay, thank you. Is there any public comment? No one here in the audience, anyone online?
Gary, did you have a comment?
He's muted still.
There you go.
No, I was just surprised it wasn't, you didn't amend your agenda to add my complaint, like you changed the agenda to add the playground to your agenda, despite the fact that your rules of procedure require applications to be filed on the Monday by noon, 10 days prior to a meeting. That's all I have to say about that.
Okay, thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
No other public comment? Is there any commission comment? All right, if there's no commission comment, anything else?
Nope.
Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? Second?
Support.
Any conversation? All in favor signify by saying yes. Yes, we are adjourned. Thank you.
You can cut me off anytime you want. It doesn't bother